wind is interrupting us again. So we're back to voiceoverdom, I'm afraid, chaps. So I've got two things to plant out. One is chard, which are ones that we've grown ourselves. I grew them from seed at home. And the other one are some kale plants that I actually picked up at the garden centre last week. This bed has been mulched about 3 weeks ago or so, and so I'm just scraping back the majority of the mulch so that I can plant my little seedlings direct into the soil. The mulch is really just a layer to kind of stop the moisture escaping, so I don't want to plant direct into it. It's not going to do their roots any good whatsoever. So I'm going to plant into these little gullies, and it'll help with the watering as well, and eventually it will all just, you know, go back down over the top, and then you won't be able to tell that they were planted in gullies. So this is a mixture of Ford Hook Giant and peppermint chard. These are ones that I sowed probably early February, I think, is when I got these in. There is a couple left over. I'm not going to cram them in too tightly. In fact, this is about like as close as you could plant chard to get it quite big. Ford Hook Giant particularly is an absolute beast. So I might have to thin these out a bit later on, but it's good to get the majority of them in the ground. I will pop the other ones up and hold them as spares. And the other thing to get in, like I say, is some curly kale. So I picked this up from the garden centre. I'm always tempted, like this time of year you go in and there's just rows and rows of really good looking like plug plants. But in this case, I didn't have any curly kale on the go myself, and it's just a difficult one because if I'm growing it indoors with the lights, it gets a bit too hot and they don't really take off. So I do tend to buy some really early brassicas from the garden centre. I bought these and some more Savoy cabbages. So I don't know if you remember the Savoy cabbages that we had last year. They were really successful, so I was actually on the lookout for them. Right, I'm just going to pot up the spares that I didn't have space for, and then we've got some picking to do. Okay, that's the broccoli. Next up is rhubarb. This is actually the old rhubarb. I don't know if you remember, we bought a new one last year, which was called Pink Champagne. This is an unknown variety that we've had for years, and actually we thought it had succumbed to crown rot last year, so we weren't very hopeful, but it's come up really strong again this year. So yeah, I'm picking from that because the other one is still a little weedy. Anyway, I'm gonna make some rhubarb panna cotta with these. Also some more mustard greens. We've got these ones growing out here, and we've also got the ones in the polytunnel. The ones in the polytunnel are absolutely vast. These ones, however, are a little bit coarser and they're only just starting to produce a flower head. So I'm just going to take that off and we'll have that for lunch. We're going to have this as a risotto with some few flowered leeks. So there's quite a few wild alliums out there, and the one that we've got a lot of up here is something called few flowered leeks. That is these chaps. They're actually a non-native invasive species, so I don't suggest you plant them anywhere, but they do grow a lot. You'll find them in woodlands or whatnot. There's quite a few different ones. It's in the same kind of vein as wild garlic. Skinnier leaves, but quite a similar taste. We have them all over the north side of our allotment site. This isn't actually my plot, this is the pathway at the top, which is very convenient for me for picking them, and I don't have to weed them, which is nice because everybody on this top side of the allotment has a terrible time with them. They are a real pest, but delicious. So here is the mustard greens and few flowered leek risotto. This is Mum and I's lunch. I do actually have this coming out at the end of the week as a really short little recipe video. I've been promising since the start of the year that I'll get back into doing recipes. Obviously, I got quite into it. I was doing quite a few, and then obviously I put my foot through the floor, and the floor has been out of action in the kitchen for about 2 years. So it's been more difficult to film. But yes, I have filmed this, and this will be coming out at the end of the week. Good morning, it is day trip alert. We are actually at Equigrows facility, which is up in Enfield. A bit of an early start for me this morning, to have a look at how they make their mulch. I'm quite interested in this. The ingredients are completely opposite to what Melcourt put in their mulch and compost and stuff, so quite interested to see how this works. You may see a few familiar faces here. There's a whole gaggle of us going on tour.
Someone stop playing the 18, please.
Right, Sean, you've got to go on the top.
Let's go on the top. Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Out the door.
Oh my god, this is so much fun. Very small one. It's not. The more you think about it, the harder it is. Yes, yeah, basically. Try and get out there. Let's have some smells.
So I'm going to start by saying I have never used any of Equigrows products. I've never used them before. I've never used their mulch or their compost or anything. But I did think when they invited me to come and look at the process that it'd be really, really interesting, because we have been to a compost facility before, do you remember, with JB? But their ingredients are almost completely opposite to this. So they use a combination of the silver fibre, which is the stuff which comes from the logging industry, and cocoa coir. And cocoa coir obviously has a huge distance to travel. They're bringing it from the other side of the world. Equigrow, one of their main calling cards is that it's really, really local. So this part of the process is the local council that they have contracts with brings their green waste that is collected just from the local area to here, where they begin processing it. So the first stage is to go through this chipper. So the council green waste dumper trucks come, leave it all here. They take out the major bits, obviously if there's logs or whatnot in it, and the rest of it gets chipped, and then it gets piled up to start the composting process.
People say that, and I feel like I don't really have an option to say no. It's kind of rhetorical.
Okay, I won't photograph you, I'll just take a picture of your probe.
So, basically, if you want to, I can turn this around so you can see. The first reading takes quite a while the probe's warming up. So it takes 4 readings. You get oxygen content, carbon dioxide content, the temperature, and then when it's finished taking the reading, it gives you the moisture content percentage as well. When you can feel that that's still...
Oh, it's pretty hot. Oh yeah. And then at the end of the composting process, you get this mountain of goodness. It's been quite carefully monitored, as you saw Bruce with the probe. He is kind of carefully monitoring it to check that it gets to the right temperature. But what you're left with is this, which is just composted local green waste. There are some quite large chunks still left in here, so it has to be graded. And it gets put through these. How gorgeous is this? I absolutely love this thing. It's just basically a giant sieve where it goes inside a machine and corkscrews with the composted green waste going through it, and you get different grades coming out. So he's told us we get 3 different grades: fine, medium, and then the big stuff either gets re-chipped or it just goes straight onto the farmland.
Just about. So on the end of the drum, there's like a welded chain on the end of the drum. And all is just driven by a big gear sprocket, which makes the drum rotate. So anything that's small enough drops onto the belly belt, we call it, which brings it to the end and puts out the side discharge belt. Anything that's too big to drop through goes out the end. It's a simple system.
Another problem with green waste, like collected by the council, is plastics.
It drops onto this pad here, which vibrates. So as the material drops on it, it just shakes over the edge nice and slowly, and it drops down. And then there's a big fan in the back here which blows air. That's why all this is mesh, so the air can escape. Blows the plastic up, and as it gets to the end of the tunnel, the plastic settles on top of the heavier material.
Yeah.
And then you have another fan on the top, which spins at, I don't know what it spins at, but very, very fast. And it creates a vacuum and it sucks the plastic.
Yeah, nice.
I'm so jealous of your lettuces, Sean. Oh, Sean.
Me?
So that's one half of the process. The other side is the horse manure. So this is a mixture of chip bedding and straw bedding, and this is it composted just the same and repeatedly chipped until you get a really nice consistency, which is then mixed with the composted green waste. It's interesting to note, in contrast again to Melcourt, where we were before, is that they had to add their fertiliser into their compost. So they introduced it with Osmocote, which is like pelleted balls of slow release fertiliser, whereas this process is actually with the horse manure and the green waste is actually inherently got its own fertility, which is quite interesting. So then these 2 separate parts are brought together, and that's what the Equigrow mulch is. So I think we're just about to go and see their bagging facility. Oh look, there is actually a green waste van doing a delivery.
Oh.
This is so cute. Look, do you remember the other one we saw? It was absolutely massive, no human involvement whatsoever. It was like this huge automated sort of warehouse thing. This one, you've actually got to put the bags on, and it is automated to a certain extent, you know, like it shakes it in the right amount and then seals the bag and squeezes it all together. And the part of it that is most robotized is stacking it onto the pallets. But other than that, yeah, it's really quite a personal bagging system. It's very sweet. Returned. That was actually quite a long day. Yeah, but really interesting, really interesting. I really like the localness of it. Like the fact that nothing's being brought across from halfway around the world and they're kind of just creating a product with what they've got there. There was a question asked about, obviously there's always problems with aminopyrrolid activity in horse manure, but quite interestingly, another part of their business, there's a lot of parts to that business. They don't just make the Equigrow compost, but one of their other sides is that they actually supply horse feed and horse bedding. And the manure that they only take from the places that they supply. so there's no aminopyridine contact in there. So I thought that was quite interesting, because that was my main concern. Obviously, anything with horse manure in it, that's your immediate reaction, is like, oh no. But I think they've got quite a good handle on it. Anyway, so big thank you to Equigrows. I have not used their product, and unfortunately I could have come away with some today, but sadly, obviously on the tube, I couldn't carry it, and there was goodies to take home. So I lugged this back on the tube, which is really quite a decent sized pot. It's actually gorgeous. It's from a company called Living Green, who I will check out, because that's a really nice pot. And on top of that, we got a little box of seeds. Or I say a little box of seeds, there's tons of seeds in here from Just Seeds, which was really sweet. So yeah, loads of bits and pieces in there. And just to top it all off, we got to keep the high visibility vest, and it's got plot 37 on it. Morning. Okay, first job on the list is get the hose out. That is right, the water is back on. So every year our water gets turned off up here because of like the risk of the pipes freezing. So water goes off. It's normally about mid-November, and then it goes on kind of normally early March, but this year it's been a little bit late, but it is now on. So we're going to unravel the hose, reinstate it, because we don't roll our hose up all the time. We just sort of leave it laying out. And that means we are officially back into the growing season. Cable tie.
it on is worthwhile when you take it off.
It is. Should we get a, do we know where the head is for it? Is it in the shed? Okay, Mum is just heading up to turn the tap on and see what we've got. This could be interesting. No, it's only leaking from this end. Well, that's impressive. Oh, sorry, you're wibbling all over the place. That is impressive. So when we were rolling this hose up, we noticed loads and loads of sun damage on it, you know, where the plastic outer coating is just like basically fractured. And we were really expecting, that's why I've had the camera set up there, I was expecting when we turned the hose on, the whole thing was going to go and just be basically like absolutely full of holes. Well, actually, not at all. So that's pretty impressive. What have I done with the chalk? What have I done with the chalk? Why am I physically incapable of keeping hold of a piece of chalk? There it is. The hose is officially out. It's summer. Blooming feels like summer. It is absolutely magnificent. So next on the list is potatoes. We've got to plant the main crop potatoes. So we've got one of the beds totally prepped. The other bed has still got some red curly kale in it. And I've got the compost over there that needs to mulch on top. So I think that's probably the next job, get those in. They're actually looking great, the potatoes, like really beautifully chitted. I will show you them in a mo. I know you don't normally chip main crop potatoes. It wasn't something necessary. It's just that we had the egg boxes and they kept rolling all over the place out of their netting. So we stuck them in the egg boxes and they chitted. That's just what happens. So, right, clearing curly kale and mulching. That's the next job. So I think I might wear a cap. It's a bit bright. It is a bit bright. You should see Lily down there. I'll turn the camera around. She is she's melted into those leaves. She's so hot. Are you melted, Lily? Melted bunny rabbit? Yeah. I've just snapped these off rather than pull all the leaves off, just to try and give them a little bit more life because it's really quite hot up here today. We don't have a great deal of shade, so I want to keep them as fresh as possible. I'm going to wrap the ends in a bit of soggy kitchen roll and put them in the shade, or what shade I can find, and hope they're all right. But yeah, you can see they are flowering and we would eat we will be eating these, but if I didn't need that bed immediately, I would have just let them go. But we need the bed, so they're coming out. And actually there's a really good amount of delicious, really soft, beautiful kale in there. So I'm pretty chuffed with that. Just go and wet the bottoms and then pull the roots out, mulch it and then lay the potatoes out. I tell you what, that is very dangerous. It's hard enough when we put it in the basket to remember to take it home, let alone hiding it in the corner, but I'll try not to forget it. Right, next thing is compost. Oh, these were those really heavy bags. normally I would water before mulching because the mulch keeps the moisture in. But actually, although this ground looks really dry, just under the surface, it's pretty damp. It's not really necessary. Okay, potatoes laid out. I've actually only got 2 rows of one variety and 3 rows of the other. The 2 varieties that we're doing are Caledonian Rose and Cur's Pink. Cur's Pink is one that I grow every single year. Love it. Great potato. Caledonian Rose, totally new, never grown it before. I got both of these from Ian. Thank you very much, Ian. Grown local. But because potatoes come by weight, sometimes if you've got larger potatoes in the bag, you've got fewer of them, if you see what I mean. And it just so happens that there was far fewer of the Caledonian Rose than there was the Cur's Pink. So we've got 3 rows of Cur's Pink, 2 rows of Caledonian Rose. This takes our total to 4 beds of potatoes this year, which is more than we've done for years and years and years and years. Last year, we just had 2 beds, and it was the first year that we'd kind of gone back to growing in the beds. We've been growing in pots and bags the last couple of years, but just really enjoyed the process of growing them in the ground last year. So yes, that is what we've returned to. These are main crop, as I said before, so these are the ones that you earth up. We will only be minor earthing up the first earlies. That's only if we're going to get some frost, and it will be just to cover the leaves, whereas these actually have a purpose for earthing them up because that's the way they grow. You know, they produce the potatoes from higher up the stem. So as we go along, these will be being earthed up. Okay, miraculously, I have remembered the kale. We are off. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Girly, girly, girlies. There's some girlies. There's another girly. Hello, got your curly bits out. Have you got your curly bits out? Yeah.
Dust bath kids on both sides.
Morning. We actually went and picked up some compost this morning, so my first job is to go and get that out of the car. Does. Mum and I are going to share that asparagus in like pure ecstasy, you know, cut it lengthwise. so we just have one long skinny half each. The first asparagus of the year is always, but I'm really pleased to say that there are actually 2 more little heads poking up. So that's not the only asparagus we're going to get for the year. So yesterday afternoon, I did a huge sort out in here. So this is the conservatory, and this is where I've had all the seeds. So I've been doing my chilies and peppers and the things that really need the heat up in the office. You've seen that, you know, with the lights and the heat mat and all the rest of it. But it's April now. A lot of things don't need that. So I've been growing them down here in the conservatory because maximum light, obviously. And it doesn't get too cold in here. But it was all getting a bit much. It was all laid out all over the tables and it got chaos. So we have now reinstated the very fancy, the very serious tray. And so I did an awful lot of potting up in the sunshine yesterday. I did the Thai basil, I did the kalettes, Cryptus Brussels sprouts, the Cavalla Nero. I potted up some extra chard that we had. One of the things that I did a lot of was the Herba Stella, you know, the Minutina. I got a lot of that potted up because I'd just sown that in, you know, one tiny little pot, and there's just masses of it like a little hedge. I hadn't realised quite how many seed I'd put in there. So I've dotted them all out, so they should come up really nicely. And really just sorted through what we had. Now, one mistake that I did make is that I've had my peppers and aubergines and chilies upstairs in the office, like I say, in the warmth. And when we've had these beautiful sunny days, I've been bringing them down here in the daytime so that they can enjoy the sunshine. I know, very nice of me. I forgot to take them upstairs last night. So they have actually been down here in the conservatory for, well, the whole night. And it was not warm last night. So I'm just really hoping that they're all right. They look okay. They look like they haven't taken, you know, a hit or anything. I mean, some of these are looking so nice. Who's this? That's the Sugar Rush Peach. I mean, compared to last year, it was just crazy. These are looking really, really good. And some of the aubergines looking really strong. I'm really happy with them. So these were the chili peppers, or some of them are sweet peppers. The rest of these are mainly sweet peppers. Yeah, just really good. Tomatoes all coming up, looking fantastic. They are the next thing that I need to pot up. But today is cucurbit day. So I've reserved a little whole shelf under here to get them going. So I'm going to start with that one. So yeah, I have really held off with these. Obviously I had the really early cucumbers. Oh, sorry, you can't see me. I had the really early cucumbers, which are doing really well upstairs. And actually I'm just waiting for a set of chili grows to come from Ian, which are actually going to be across here in the conservatory. Do you know what? I might just adjust this camera because I am not comfy doing that. Right, let's just get these started. So yeah, today I am sowing courgettes, squash, like winter squash, melons, and cucumbers. I'm going to try and be a little bit restrained. Oh, I've got soil in my slipper. Nice. I'm going to try and be a little bit restrained, but we'll see how that goes. So, varieties. I'm going to start with the courgettes. We're actually doing 5 varieties of courgettes this year. I know. But then last year, I only did, last year I thought I'd gone nuts. Last year I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 courgette plants. And I thought it was just going to be a disaster. We were going to be inundated. But last year being what it was, not at all. So I'm going to do 6 again this year. But only 5 varieties. The one that I'm going to do 2 of is the little white one from Amalfi. This is called Bianca di Triest, so just the white one from Trieste, basically. But what a beautiful little courgette this is. It is a pure joy. You do have to pick them really small, though. You know, people always say, oh, well, if you pick your courgettes really nice and small, you don't get inundated with them. Well, yeah, that's if you can be there every day because they grow like just nuts, don't they? But these actually, if you don't pick them small, they're actually quite unpleasant. But small, they're outrageously good. So I want to end up with 2 of these, and I'm going to plant double the amount. So I want 1 of all the rest of them. I'm going to plant 2, and I'm going to plant 4 of these. Somebody did actually tell me that they wanted one of these white ones, and I cannot remember who that was, so that's slightly annoying. But there was somebody who wanted one, so if I do a couple of extras, at least I've got them. Now, where is my pen? Where is my pen? Where is my pen? Do, 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 do. Of course, it's underneath. Right, Bianca. So they are the teeny tiny little ones. All the rest of the courgette varieties I'm growing are normal sized, you know, long courgettes, a standard courgette shape. It's for a couple of reasons. I have tried growing round ones for a good couple of years now. I like them, but what they're best for is taking the tops off, like little, you know, you pick them up that sort of size, take the tops out, scoop out the seeds, stuff them with something wonderful, and just have them as like a single portion like that. But unfortunately, there's 4 of us in this house. And to actually get to the point where you can get 4 ready at the same time for us all to be able to eat just doesn't happen. And so you end up with 1 and then you're waiting for more to kind of come, and then the first one goes soft and it's all over. So I am not doing them this year, and I'm also not doing any patty pans. Sometimes I do Patterson Gagat, which is a green patty pan, or I do Bennington's green tint. I'm not doing either of them. I'm sticking to bog standard courgettes this year. The first one I've got in is a stripy one from Frankie's, which is just called basically Italian striped, Striata di Italia. Grew this one last year. Like I say, none of the courgettes were a wild success last year, which is a bit of a shame. But normally, this one does really well. So that is my 2 Striata. I've got a second stripy one that I'm doing, which is this one. It's called Caserta. It's from Real Seeds. And Real Seeds, you generally have really good success with Real seeds. The Frankie seeds are Italian, so they're coming from a slightly different climate to ours. And sometimes they're a runaway success and brilliant, and other times they just needed a bit more sunshine. I find the real seeds one tend to be a bit more suited to if we have a pants summer, basically. This one, very interesting. It's an heirloom, about 80 years old. But I like the description of it. Very pretty with pale grey-green background and dark green stripes. It's early to fruit and a tender skin. Sounds wonderful. So that's my two stripy ones. That is Italian striped and Caserta. Then I'm doing two plain green ones. One of them is Italian green, good old Frankie's, with its creative names. Again, one I've grown for years, a bit like the Italian one. It's just a really good courgette, but you do need the sunshine. So, I mean, fingers crossed for this year, because it has been sad times the last couple of years. That's that one. Just plain green. It's quite a bright green. You know, you can get the really dark courgettes, which are almost like black. There's one called Black Beauty, I think, is one. There's a Black Beauty in every vegetable. That's just like a standard name. There's black. I can't even think of a vegetable that doesn't have a Black Beauty variety. But this is a pale green one, but it is not striped. You know, it's just like quite a bright, vibrant green. The other one I'm doing is also just a plain green, but this is quite dark. It's green from Milan, Verdi di Milano, but it's a bush type, you know, so they're much more compact. And we've had some good success with bush types over the years. There's a really standard one that you get a lot, which is called All Green Bush. I'm pretty sure All Green Bush, which is also a dwarf variety and really, really good, like bog standard courgette, proper reliable. Deary me, I haven't labelled that one. Right. Don't be doing this nonsense, Jessie. What is this one? Milano. And the one before it was Verdi. Right. And that, chaps, is my 5 courgettes for this year. So I'm also going to be putting in my winter squash. Crown Prince is my bog standard, like, go-to squash. I just think it has the best flavour. I don't have any Crown Prince seed this year, but I've got so many other squash. I'm not going to go and buy it. I'm just going to grow what I've got. So I'm doing a real standard butternut, just one butternut. It's the Waltham Butternut. It is a classic. Butternuts, I find, are one of those things, again, that you have one year where you just have masses of them and they grow brilliantly, and then the next year you do everything the same and you just get a few piddly fruit. Last couple of years we've found that they haven't got going early enough, so that we've only ended up with like quite immature fruit, and you know, you try to ripen them or whatnot, but it never really happens. I'm doing 2 of those as well. Label, label, label. Pencil, pencil, pencil. And the other one that I'm doing is a small acorn, which is just called Early Acorn F1, which actually came out of when was it last year or was it the year before? I can't remember. I asked, you know, in general online to you lot, which if you had any recommendations for really small pumpkins, because Crown Prince is about as big as I want to go. We don't eat a great deal of pumpkin. And if you end up with like 10 massive ones, like one year we grew, oh my goodness, I can't even remember what it was called now. It was massive. Hungarian something, and each one was like this weird sort of like a big fat blue pear. And we ended up with about 10 of them, and we didn't grow pumpkins for like another couple of years, or winter squash for another couple of years, because we were traumatized by how many of these damn things we got. So yeah, I'm going for small. Who's that? That is Acorn. And this one was one that quite a few people recommended, so we got hold of that. Planted it last year, didn't get diddly squat, because that was the bed that kept getting dug up. Haha. Excelente. So that is, we are flying. That is the courgettes, that is the winter squash. In here, I am also going to sow some cucumbers. We've got Carmen, which is one that I got off Ian. grown local. The description on this is nuts. I mean, they're 40 centimetres long and it says it gets 50 to 100 fruits per plant. You may be seeing me very sick of cucumber in a couple of months' time. So we're going to do 2 of those. That is Carmen. And I think there was something else that Mum wanted to do that was a cucumber, or did we just go straight in for the melons after that? Oh no, she wanted to do longer to China, so it's basically Chinese long. You can see how skinny they are on the picture. They actually were like this. We got a couple of fruit last year, and what a delicious cucumber. Really, really long and skinny. You know, like a big sized cucumber. Skinny. Very, very few seed in the middle. Like it was a really, and sweet. No, proper sweet. So I'm really hoping we're going to get a couple of these. We're going to be growing all of the cucumbers in the Quadgrows this year. So I have really high hopes for them. So that's Carmen and Long Chinese. That is the cucumber selection for the year. Now, the last thing to sow is melons, and I've got 3 melons this year. Slightly frustratingly, I'm going to sow 2 of each, which means I need 2 in another tray. Never mind. The 3 that I'm doing, one of them I've grown very successfully many times before. It's absolute classic. Minnesota Midget grows really, really well in this climate. Has to be grown indoors, like in a greenhouse. Oh, there's only 2 seed in there. Come on, little chaps. Yeah, it has to be grown indoors. I've never had or heard of any great success with it outside. But what a fantastic little fruit. About that sort of size, like a cricket ball sort of size, and sweet as all hell. Midget. Really fantastic little melon. So that's one I would recommend. In fact, it's the first melon I ever grew successfully, and it's still the best. But I'm trying 2 others. So last year I tried a watermelon. This one is called Sugar Baby, and it's a little tiny one. There's no seed in there. Is that them? Have they fallen out? Yes. That's lucky that it's an identifiable seed. You can see that they look pretty watermelony. So this is a little tiny one. Again, similar sort of size fruit to the Minnesota Midget. And I just love the foliage on these. Got these to germinate last year. They were growing really nicely. They just didn't get any further, like they didn't produce any fruit. So I'm hoping this year we will be getting our first watermelon. I'd never even thought about growing watermelon actually until I was working in a garden centre, the garden centre in Kensington that I used to work at. We've been there a couple of times. And this girl came in who I'd kind of been speaking to, you know, customer, but she had been in looking for veg and stuff. And she came in, she brought me a seedling of a watermelon that she was growing, Sugar Baby. And it did start to fruit eventually when I got it in the greenhouse and everything. It did start to fruit, but it never ripened. And it was a watermelon that she had saved, so it obviously wasn't really set for growing in this country, but it kind of sparked the idea for me. And it went from there. I've been trying to grow them ever since. Right, just get that all nice and covered, and then let's do this one. Okay, I've filled the whole tray because we've got so much stuff to sow in the next couple of days. I'll just do these little ones on the side now. Look at these. Don't these look cute? These are called Rich Sweetness, and apparently 10 centimetres across, grow really well in the UK, and beautiful. So I'm excited about this. This is a first time for me. Never grown these, never tried them before. There we go. as with all of these cucurbit seed that are quite large and flat, plant them, so pinch them and then plant them up on their edge. So they're like that rather than like, because they can rot out if they're lying that way. You get the water kind of pooling on top of them and they can suffer a bit. Whereas if you plant them upright, less likely to happen. Right, last label on there. Who is this? Rich Sweetness. Gorgeous. There we go. So under here, we've got a tray full of lettuces mainly. We've got Mizuma, lobjoits, absolutely nothing has, oh, I lie, I was about to say nothing's come up on Beauregard, but it has. Webb's Wonderful is up, a couple of sulfita, and then in this bed we've got rocket, spring onions, and the Malabar spinach, which is a no-show currently. But yeah, everything's looking pretty good. So that, chaps, is cheers. Another busy week has absolutely flown by. Yeah, so next week, starting off with a big announcement next week. A project that's coming up. So that's going to be the start of next week and we'll do a bit of discussing of that. Don't forget that later this week there's going to be some cooking of mustard greens happening. I'll release that probably Thursday or Friday. I've recorded it, so that will go out then. Yeah, I think that's it, chaps. I think that's it. So cheers to my Patreons, as always, who will be watching this on Monday, and cheers to everybody else. I really hope this incredible weather lasts just a little bit longer. Cheers, chaps.